The military had been Cage's only avenue forward in a family that prided itself on excellence. He suspected that his parents and grandfather would have preferred he take the standard path like Caden. But Cage wasn't like his brother. Never had been. Cage liked living on the edge, and for 13 of his 15 years in the Navy, the SEALs had given him the danger and excitement he craved while allowing him to serve his country. His tightly knit 6-man unit had become like a family to him. He had thought himself impenetrable. He'd had to be to survive and not end up in the psych ward. But losing his right-hand man, Griffin, or Scorpion, as most of the guys called him, had destroyed Cage's desire to stick with the SEALs. Griffin had been more of a brother to him than his own. And when Cage was done with something, he was done. There was no looking back, no regrets. So, he was quietly staying along the edge of today's celebration, people watching. It wasn't his usual MO. Typically, he went in guns a-blazing, and people either liked him or they didn't. He didn't much care. But this was Caden's day, so he wasn't going to cause a hoopla. His brother and beautiful wife, Savannah, radiated sophistication and class. Meanwhile, Liam, the nephew Cage had just recently learned he had, retreated indoors. Liam had autism, and crowds upset him. Cage wished he could go inside too, because just then a blast from the past blew him away. He turned around in hopes he wouldn't be spotted. "Cage, is that you?" a female voice said from behind him as he attempted to drink away his troubles at the outdoor bar. He spun around and came face to face with Michaela Johnson, the first woman he'd ever loved. Michaela? Cage hadn't seen her since he briefly returned home after his first year in the SEALs. He'd been cold and hard back then, uncaring about anyone but himself. He had spurned Michaela's affections even though they had dated for years in high school. Cage had even thought he might marry her because, according to his mother, Camilla, Michaela came from the right sort of family. "In the flesh," Michaela said. Cage was so busy staring at her overly large belly that he couldn't speak. "And as for this," she said, rubbing her stomach, "I couldn't wait for you forever, Cage. I met my husband, Tony." She inclined her head toward a clean-cut white man several steps away. "A few years after you unceremoniously dumped me." "About that, I was in a bad place," Cage began, but she interrupted him, placing her hand on his arm. "Cage, it's okay. I moved on, and when I did, I met the man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with, and now we're expecting. I have you to thank for that." "Really?" Cage felt guilty about how badly he had ended things with Michaela. "Yes." She smiled broadly, and her rosy cheeks bloomed. "I hope you'll find your happily ever after too someday." With that, she slipped away as quickly as she appeared. Her absence had Cage wondering what could have been if he'd stayed long enough in one place. He always told everyone that he wasn't the settling down kind, but Michaela had him rethinking his perspective. He glanced up from his empty beer bottle, and his eyes caught a pair of dark brown ones from several yards away. With that one glance, he felt a lightning bolt zap his heart. The woman had a round, heart-shaped face, a button nose, almond-shaped eyes, and full, sensuous lips. Her hair was cut short in an asymmetrical bob, slick on one side with full, luminous curls on the other. A one-shoulder gold gown, lined with beads, set off her figure. The top gave a tantalizing view of the swell of her breasts and the creamy expanse of her tawny brown skin. She wore no jewelry other than some tiny diamond earrings. She looked like a goddess come to life. Who is she?